Hello and welcome to this edition of Group Talk the XSeries, Mobile XPages, with our hosts GBS and our friends at TLCC, Howard Greenberg and Paul De La Nebbia. Without further ado, here is Howard to get us started.
I'd like to welcome everyone here today to our GBS and TLCC XSeries monthly webinar. Today's topic is on mobile web pages. The speakers today are myself. I'm Howard Greenberg. I'm one of the partners here at TLCC, and my partner Paul De La Nebbia. Paul, you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone, and I think you missed good night. I think we've got some folks that are attending in the wee hours of the morning, so good night to those folks as well. I'll let you take it over, Howard.
All right, thanks, Paul. And Paul will be with us later on to get into some of the details of implementing the mobile controls. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is we're going to get into the mobile development landscape and how the different technologies fit in and how they might map into your requirements. Then we're going to talk about the IBM Upgrade Pack 1 and compare that to the extension library. We're going to talk a little bit how you can go about testing your mobile web apps. And then we're going to get into the mobile controls. Most of what we're going to talk about today is going to be regarding how you can mobilize your Notes and Domino applications by creating a mobile web application using the mobile controls that are in the IBM Upgrade Pack 1 or the extension library. So we'll convert an application with views and documents to mobile web use. Then we'll talk a little bit about skills required to build mobile apps, and we'll show you an integration of Google Maps into our application that we're going to build today on the webinar, how we took that a step further and integrated that into Google Maps on the phone. So those of you on the call today hopefully have all done some work with XPages and are experienced Notes and Domino developers. So we're assuming that you understand how to create an XPage, at least a basic one, and how to add controls and work with it using desktop browsers and the Notes client. Again, this is kind of like a little bit of the material that's in our course. That's about 20 hours on XPages, and those are some of the topics that we have. So let me get started by talking and contrasting how you can create different mobile applications and some of the tools we're going to use to do that. So first of all, many of you, or probably all of you, who have either iPhones or Android devices or even BlackBerries are familiar with your native mobile applications. So these are the apps that you either come with the device or you go to the App Store, like iTunes, and get for free or purchase. And the data is stored either locally or in some cases like an app that I use a lot for the Weather Channel. It goes out on the internet and pulls down the data whenever I check the weather. So the data can be stored either locally or on the web. Typically these apps are programmed using the device-specific software development kit. For example, there's an Objective-C language for the iPhone devices, iPad devices, and for Android you use Java. And they have their own SDK as well that you can go to the Google website and get. The advantage of these native mobile applications is that you can work offline, especially when the data is stored locally. And they also can integrate very nicely with the camera, so you can take pictures and integrate that into your data or into your application. And they can access the GPS location information. Now compare that to the mobile web applications. These are accessed with the mobile device's browser. And then, so you're typically going to get your data on the internet or intranet. But with HTML5, there's some options to store data locally. So you're going to give your users a URL, and they're going to access these mobile web applications on your web server, in this case, a Domino server, with that URL. And in the case of many of the devices like the iPhone, you can make that a application that has its own icon right on the home screen. The advantage of the mobile web applications is that they're a lot easier to develop because you're going to use your standard HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. But the disadvantage is they do require connectivity. The other advantage of these is that they will tend to be device independent. So except in some cases where you might have some features, let's say on the iPhone, that you don't have on the Android or vice versa, the vast majority of your code is usable on all the devices. Then we have kind of an in-between category of apps called the hybrid, and these typically use a development framework. Some of the popular ones out there are PhoneGap or Titanium. IBM just bought a company called WorkLight, which is also a framework to build hybrid apps. And with these, you can use your JavaScript and HTML, but then the frameworks will convert those to the native device, and then you can deploy those using your application stores like iTunes. The framework also handles the differences between the different devices, but it still allows access to things like the phone and the GPS. So that's another option as well. Now we're going to talk mostly today about the Domino, creating notes and Domino applications using the mobile controls that we get from the Upgrade Pack 1 extension library. But there are other tools out there specifically for Domino applications. Team Studio has a tool called Unplugged that you can build native applications by creating XPages. Now these don't use the same mobile controls that we're going to talk about today, but they do use a set of controls that you develop in Domino Designer by creating XPages. So that's one solution if you need a native application. There's another product called Domino To Go that's kind of built on Titanium, and so you're not working in Domino Designer, but you are. This has the ability to take your Domino data and replicate it locally to the device. Bruce Elgort has also wrapped up and has a series of Taking Notes podcasts on mobile solutions, and I put the URL up there that you'll get when we have the presentation. I know it's kind of long. Paul, maybe you can copy that URL to the chat so people want to access it now. But Bruce kind of did some podcasts with people from Team Studio and Domino To Go and some of the other solutions, which is, if you're interested in native applications, the device has to sit, or the application has to sit on the device, the data has to sit on the device. That might be a good podcast to talk about. But now I think the majority of our needs are really suited fine with the web browser solution, and that's using the mobile controls from the Upgrade Pack 1 and the extension library. Because when you think about it, lots of times the data might be too big to really sit on the device. And most people, the reality is most people are in areas where they have connectivity all the time. So these web-based applications tend to be a lot quicker to build too, and this is probably the quickest path to deploying your Notes and Domino applications to mobile devices, is to use the mobile controls and build a web browser-based application. So mobile browsers, from the more popular mobile devices, you all use the WebKit-based browser. So that would include your iPhones, your Androids, your later model Blackberries, as well as some of your desktop browsers use the WebKit-based browsers too. So what we're going to do is use the mobile controls that are in the Upgrade Pack 1 or the extension library. So a couple words about the Upgrade Pack 1. The Upgrade Pack 1 came out in December of last year, and was a subset of what was the extension library. So these are a set of controls that you can use in your XPages development, and part of those controls include the mobile controls, which are a set of controls that are used to mobilize the your applications, and we're going to go into details on those later in the webinar. So this Upgrade Pack 1, you need to install that on your Domino Designer, and then any of your apps that you deploy also need the Upgrade Pack 1 installed on your servers. Alternatively, you can use the extension library and install that on your Designer client and install that on your Domino servers. Now, not to steal any thunder from our November webinar, but these controls we're going to talk about today will be built into the Social Edition. That all those features in the Upgrade Pack 1 will be standard in Notes Social Edition that comes out in early next year. So as we're going through the webinar, we're going to talk about Upgrade Pack 1, but if you want to use the extension library, that is okay because those controls are there too and they're upward compatible. So a little bit of the differences is the Upgrade Pack 1. That is the official IBM supported release of this subset of controls that were in the extension library. And you download this through your Passport Advantage or Partner World if you're an IBM business partner. Now, some of the disadvantages is that this came out in December of 11, and there's been no fixed packs and no additions to this since then. Now, meanwhile, the extension library, you get that at OpenNTF. The downside is there is no IBM support. You can't open up a PMR on this. You can't call IBM technical support on issues with the extension library. But the advantage is that this has been updated several times throughout the year, and it has more capability than the Upgrade Pack 1. If you look at the little diagram we have, you see that in terms of categories of controls, there's a lot more controls like Facebook and things like that that are in the extension library that are not in the Upgrade Pack 1. The good news is that for what we're talking about today for the mobile controls, those have not changed. Those are still the same as they were in the Upgrade Pack 1. So for the purpose of mobilizing your applications, whether you use the Upgrade Pack 1 or the extension library, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so again, if you're going to use the mobile, create mobile XPages, you need to have at least Upgrade Pack 1 or the extension library installed on your Designer client. And then when you deploy the applications, you have to have these on your server. One thing that the Upgrade Pack 1 does offer is that has an official install program, and it installs as any other Windows program and can be uninstalled the same way. Whereas the extension library, you're going to use the Eclipse install process and install it like a plugin, and on the server you're going to copy over some directories to the appropriate place on your server. Or a much better approach that I won't have time to get into is to use there's a way to create a notes database and have those plugins get automatically installed on your server. And so those it's a much better approach because that allows you to upgrade that a lot easier, and you don't have to actually access the file system on your server. But those, you can find that all on the extension library documentation on how to do that. Okay, so once you have your mobile application built, you're going to want to test it. So let's go through a couple testing scenarios. The best way to test, and probably the only way you should do your final testing, is to use the actual mobile devices. And that's where you're going to need a Domino server, or you could possibly use the web preview server in Designer and use the actual iPhone, use the actual Android that your users will be using. Another way to test is that many, or I should say the two most popular mobile devices, the iPhone and the Android, they have a emulator that emulates the iPhone or the Android. And those emulators you have to get from the SDK from either Apple or from Google. Another way is to use a desktop browser and spoof the user agent so the server thinks that it's talking to a mobile device instead of a desktop browser. And finally, in the extension library, this is not in the Upgrade Pack 1, but in the extension library, there is a little XPages mobile simulator, and you'll see that working today. That kind of simulates working in these mobile devices, and it's pretty easy to use, and that's what we use in our course to make it easy for people to try out applications. So the first solution, if you're going to use the actual devices, is to basically you just use the device and navigate to a specific URL that links to the X page, and you have the application up on your Domino server and access it directly on your server. Another way, it's a little more difficult network-wise, but if you can access your designer client through a specific URL and IP address, you can start up the web preview server, just like when you're previewing an X page in your designer client, and then you take that URL and either email it to your mobile device or just type it in your mobile device browser and pull it up that way. So this, again, as I said before, you always want to test in the actual devices, at least in your final round of testing, because the devices will act differently than the other ways to test, especially if you want to use some of the features that are unique to that device. Those won't work in the other ways to test. An example would be if you have an iPhone and you're entering a date, you have those nice little spinning wheels to enter a date. Well, you can't do that in any of the other testing methods. So you do want to make sure that you use the actual devices to at least do your final testing. Another tool you can use is a mobile device emulator. So these typically don't emulate the browser or simulate the browser, the mobile browser, but they're emulating the hardware, and then you can run native applications on top of those, and then one of those native applications will be the browser that comes with that device. This is a picture of the Android emulator that comes with the Android SDK. If you are using iPhones, the Apple has a emulator too that only runs on the Apple Macs, desktop systems. But there are third parties out there that make Apple emulators to emulate an iPhone or an iPad. Typically, those are something you'd have to pay for, but you might be able to find something out on the web that's free. Another way to test, and this is good for your initial development, is the XPage mobile controls has a way to look at the URL, and if you, at the end of the URL, if you put $platform equal iPhone or platform equals Android, it will spoof the application to looking like an iPhone or working like an iPhone device or an Android device. Again, some of the controls, like entering dates, are not going to work the same as they do on the device. But this is good for kind of getting a rough idea and doing your initial debugging and seeing how the application is going to behave. Another neat tool that was added to the extension library is the XPages simulator. So if you note, there's tabs, and you can click on the tabs to get the devices in both portrait and landscape mode. And this is something that is in the extension library. They use it to demo the mobile controls in the demo application that comes in the extension library. It's in that zip file in the extension library. And in our course, we just took those, that one X page that runs this mobile simulator, as well as the images that make it up and whatever other supporting files there were, and we copied it to another database and are able to use it there. Okay, so now in terms of actually creating these mobile applications, Paul's going to walk us through from the very start of how we can convert a Notes and Domino application using the mobile controls that come with Upgrade Pack 1 in the extension library. Paul?
Okay, thank you, Howard. And Howard, stay on for a moment to make sure I'm heard and you can see my screen.
Yes, on both questions.
Okay, so I'm going to take you through converting or let's say mobilizing a Notes application so that you can access it with mobile devices using the mobile controls, of course. On a side note, a couple of folks are asking questions now. Certainly do that. You know, as your questions come up, post them into the question area, and we're going to pick those up at the question and answer at the end, and we should have plenty of time for that as well. Now, the application that I'm going to be mobilizing is this customers application. So this is I'm viewing it in Notes right now, but you know, we've got a number of customers that we deal with. This is a kind of a fake company that we set up for our courses, the Big Oak Golf Company, and we've got a lot of golf customers. So we've got information on golf courses and retail golf stores and contact information and phone numbers and so on, the kind of products that we sell them and so on. So all of our courses come with a number of support databases to perform the activities and the demos, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mobilizing this customers application, specifically focusing on this customer by name view to show that on a mobile device, and also allow the user to tap a particular customer name, you know, to get more information on the particular contact, their phone number, and so on. Okay. Now, this slide is showing a demo of the end result of my mobilization of that application. So if you point your mobile device to www.tlcc.com/demo, you will, and I'm just going to click on it here with my desktop to open it in a browser. If you do it in a browser, you're going to get to this page which says, you know, point your iOS or Android device to that URL. Okay, so you want to point your mobile device to that location. Now, it is also supported, the mobile controls will support BlackBerry version 6 devices as well, although our redirect page may not support that redirect. Maybe if someone can post in the questions whether or not they're able to hit that demo page with a BlackBerry version 6 device. Okay, so as Howard pointed out, when you install the Upgrade Pack 1 or the extension library, one of your control containers is your mobile controls, and there's 6, 7, 8 of those. And first off, I'm just going to give you a high-level introduction to those various controls. Now, this is an interesting slide because it kind of shows you the architecture of a mobile application. So what we're seeing is the XP view tag. So that's the root tag for your X page. And then we're seeing some XE tags, extension library tags. That's the extension library namespace, like the single page app tag. So your mobile application, all of the pages on it, and we're converting this mobile application, which is going to have 2 mobile pages, one which is going to show the customer by name view and just the customer names, and when the user taps one of those entries, it's going to open up the contents of that Domino document on a second mobile page. So we have 2 mobile pages. This page is called View Page. We're going to have a document page as well. And those two are contained in something called the single page application control. And all of those are contained on your XPage. Okay, so that's the purpose of the single page application and your mobile page controls. Now, some other controls that are available to you. You can add a page heading control and get something like this, a heading for your page, and that's what we're seeing here. You can also add single line item controls. These are typically used for navigation, and what's missing here is a little chevron to the right. What's really missing on this single line item, where I'm seeing the properties here, is some sort of a move to location, the address of the page to move to when the user taps that particular option. The rounded list control, that mobile control, its only purpose is for styling. It gives you a rounded corner rectangular area, and by convention it's used for displaying data. In the case of a domino application, that's domino data. And the other controls that are available to you are your tab bar and your tab bar button controls, and their purpose should be pretty obvious with that screenshot. And I'm returning back to those first two controls that we talked about. So I'm going to launch into Designer. I'm going to create this simple mobile application, this Hello Mobile World application. So what I'm going to need is I'm going to need a XPage. I'm going to need on top of that a single page application, within that a single page application. I'm going to drop on that control, and then I'm going to drop a single mobile page with some static text on. Okay. So here I am in Designer, and I'm going to be working in this application, the Workbench application. This is the same Workbench application for our mobile course, and you can see there's a number of XPages, some that begin with demo and activity, and then a whole bunch that begin with mobile. Okay, and these are used for the various demonstrations and activities in the course. In fact, most of these begin with mobile, and that's there's a specific reason for that. The two requirements from a design perspective, after you've got all of your components, you've got your extension library installed in Designer, and of course you've got it installed on your testing server as well. But the two requirements from a application design perspective is, one, in your application properties, on the Advanced tab, you must check off to use the extension library. Okay? And in fact, I've got more than the Upgrade Pack 1 installed on this particular system because I see my extension lib X library as well. So that's the one with the controls that are not available in the Upgrade Pack 1. Things like your social enabler controls, your Facebook controls, your JDBC controls, and so on. So we're going to see those introduced, we would think, in some future release of Notes and Domino. Okay, so that's the one requirement. The other requirement, and I'm switching over to my Package Explorer view and going into my Web Content XSP Properties file. And when I look at the source, I see two theme statements. Okay, XSP theme, and this one is equal to One UI version 2.1. What that's saying is that the theme to use for all of my XPages is One UI version 2.1. That's what I've chosen for this particular application. This second statement, statement 7, XSP theme mobile page prefix, says any XPage that has the prefix that begins with mobile, in this case, and I could have called it whatever I want, is going to use the mobile themes. So if that XPage is accessed with an Android device, the Android style sheets are going to be used to properly display for that Android device. If accessed with an iOS device, the Apple themes or the Apple style sheets are going to be used to render for that device. Okay, close that. So I've got those requirements in place, and I want to create that simple Hello World application. Okay, so back here, in my application navigator, I'm going to create a new X page, and I must give it that, use that prefix, mobile. We'll call it mobile. Hello. Okay, so using that page prefix so that the appropriate mobile themes are used. Okay. Now here in my controls palette, I can see the mobile container with the various mobile controls, and the first control that I need to add is the single page application. Your mobile application can have several mobile pages, but all of those will be contained in your single page application. Now what I'm going to do here is move over to the source, and what we found is that you know, when you're developing with the mobile controls, that you find yourself in the source a lot. In fact, I find myself in the source all the time. So I'm going to be working in the source for the most part and working in the all properties as well. Okay, so right now I'm seeing the all properties for the X page. I can select that single page application control, and I can see the all properties for that as well. So what I want to do is add within my single page application one mobile page. So from my controls palette, dragging in a mobile page, and then just going to put some static text in there. Hello, mobile world. Okay, and let me format that. A little tip here. This is a nice little tip here. Source toggle comment or Control-Shift-C, and this is a nice tip, Control-Shift-F to format your content as well. Okay. Okay, so let's preview that and see what that looks like. And it's just loading. I'm just previewing it in my Chrome browser right now, and not looking too good at this point in time. I'm not seeing my Hello Mobile World, and let me return to Designer. And in fact, I can see that I must have forgotten something. I've got an error here. It's on the single page application tag, and my error is required property selected page name is not present. So one property that you must have for your single page application is the first mobile page to load when the page is loaded, when the X page is loaded. So I'll need to set that. But before I can set that, I need to give my single application page, my app page, a name. So I do that by selecting my app page tag, and I give it the page name. I'm going to just call this page 1. Okay. And now I can return to my single page application control, and for the selected page name, I can address that page 1 as the page to load when this particular X page is loaded. So I'll save that, and let me preview again. Okay, and that looks a lot better. I'm seeing my Hello Mobile World, and I'm seeing it again. I'm using Chrome here, so this is kind of like I would see it on an Android device. Okay, and one of the things that Howard pointed out, and let me borrow that, that command. There is a command. Oh, there it is. Okay, I've been here before. Question platform iPhone. If I append that to my URL, I'm spoofing this using the iPhone style sheets. Okay. If I replace that with a Android, I can spoof it as seen on an Android device. So I'm seeing the Android style sheets used here. And the other device that's supported is your BlackBerry version 6 devices, and you get the same style sheets as used for your iPhone or your iOS devices as well. Now, another option is the mobile simulator. So what we're seeing here is the mobile simulator that Howard actually moved this from the extension library demos. He took the appropriate XPage and made a few modifications so that we can actually load any XPage into the simulator. So the one that I just created is called mobile hello.xsp, and there I can load that into my mobile simulator, and kind of looks the same as it was when spoofing, but it's showing me a more appropriate spacing, the more appropriate depth and width or height and width for the various devices. Okay, so a very handy tool, and of course that's built right into our courses. But a handy tool just for that immediate preview. Is it working? Is my XPage working? Do I have an error? It's going to give you that immediate feedback. Certainly will not give you all of the actual device functionality, like the way dates are presented and your wheel controls on dates and so on. But certainly will give you a good, quick rendering of your page, which is really useful, for your rapid mobile development. Okay, let's take a look at some other functionality. So I'm going to return to the presentation. And just want to talk about navigation for a moment, and then we'll demonstrate this. But there's some navigation that's built into the single line item controls. So the single line item controls have a move to property, and you can specify the mobile page that you want to move to, and that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a single page application with 3 mobile pages: App Page 1, App Page 2, and App Page 3, and single line item controls being used to move to, in this case, App Page 2. We're seeing here a heading with a home button on it. This is actually a back property, and some sort of a move to address, moving back to the, I guess, initial page or the home page for this application. And another way to provide navigation is to add a tab bar control with tab bar buttons, and to program those buttons to go to a particular mobile page. So let's try that out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a modification to my mobile hello application. I'm going to take out that static text, and I'm going to add a page heading instead. Okay. And the label for that heading, well, I'm just going to call it Page 1. And let's add a second page. Okay, there's that Control-Shift-C to add a comment, Control-Shift-F to format. Okay, so I'm going to add a second mobile page from my controls. And this page, I will give it a page name, an addressable page name, Page 2. And I'll also add a page heading for that. Okay, with a label of Page 2. And while I'm there working with that heading, as we saw in the presentation, there is navigation or a navigation opportunity in your headings. You can add a move to location when the back button is selected. So back is actually the label for the button. So we're going to call this, I don't know, home. Okay, as the label for that button. And where do I want to move to? I want to move to Page 1. Okay, so we've got some back navigation from the heading on page 2 going back to page 1. So let's add some, navigation from page 1 to page 2. Otherwise, we never get to page 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a static line item control to page 1 and give it a label, like go to page 2. And where do I want to move to? Also has a move to property, so I'm going to specify page 2. And also has this property here where we can select the type of transition. So it could be a slide transition, a fade, a flip transition. So we'll select slide for that one. And let's explore while we're here some of the other transitions. So I'm just going to copy the beginning and end tag and everything in between for that single line item control. And I'm just going to paste in a couple of times, a couple of 3 times, and change that one property, the transition. Okay, so for that single line item, I might go with a transition of, we have fade, flip, and none. So I'll select fade from the all properties. For the other ones, let me just go right to the source and go with flip. And let's see what none does as well. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And just go to my browser page, and I'm going to refresh. I've taken out the mobile hello world. I replaced that with some stuff, so let's refresh my page. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the page heading, which says page 1. That's on the label property. And I'm also seeing a go to page 2, but not seeing the other ones. That's kind of disturbing. But we'll see what my problem is there in a moment. For now, let's see if that works. Yeah, I did get to page 2. And I can see that page 2 has a heading with the label page 2 and the back button with the value of home on the back button, and the move to is page 1. Okay, so let's see what I did wrong here. Oh, I see what I did wrong. I pasted in those other static line items outside of my application page ending tag. So let me just move that. Oh, I did a few things wrong here. Oh yeah, I see what I did. I pasted that in a few times. Did I get them all? Okay, so we've got our starting page, we've got our heading, we've got a couple of line items. Oh, missed one. Let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to save those corrections and refresh. Okay, so I'm seeing 4 single line items, each with a different transition. We saw the slide, that was the fade, and there's the flip. And of course, the user is tapping with their finger on these various options, and none is kind of a direct opening of that page without any transition. Okay. All right, so that was our introduction to some of our transition controls, the very important single page application control and app page control. Now we're going to use that understanding and actually convert that customer's application. Now, before we do that, we have a slide here on the screen right now that's showing us a data view control. Now, the data view control is kind of like your view control. That's one of your core container controls. It's available in the extension library in the Upgrade Pack 1. When you want to display a domino view in a mobile application, you must use a data view control. You cannot use a view control. So you're going to use that as your framework for, first of all, accessing your domino view, and then also for defining, what you want to show in it. Now, what we're seeing here is the data view control with all of its functionality, and this is really a great control for your XPage, your non-mobile and your mobile applications. But for your non-mobile applications, you can see, on the screen that there are some things that are just not available to you in your standard view control. Things like these chevrons to expand and show details for the current row. Okay, so you can show details. There are additional pages like the show and hide details and add more rows, a kind of a conventional pager that's being used more and more. You can also have extra columns. This is the summary column that we're seeing on the left-hand side. Any extra columns would be rendered on the right-hand side. So really a very great control, and certainly one that you must use to render views in your Domino web applications. So, sorry, your mobile applications. However, what we're seeing in this screen is that you cannot use all of the full functionality of the data view control. If you use, for instance, the show hide details pager control, it just doesn't work. It kind of renders funny on your mobile device, and it just doesn't work. If you have, or if you are showing row details, they do render on your mobile device, but they're automatically expanded, and there's no ability to collapse them. So you're taking up that valuable space on your mobile device. Also, any extra columns are going to show underneath the row or underneath the summary column, and so they're taking up valuable space as well. So basically, actually what we're seeing on this side is the add more rows functionality. That does work on your mobile devices and is an excellent tool to page through and add more rows of data. Okay. So here is a data view control that's being properly used in a mobile application, and all it has is a summary column and a domino view data source. And that typically is what you will want to use. Oh, there's one more thing, and that is this more customers pager to add some more rows of data. So the process for doing that is on your XPage, within your mobile page that's going to render your domino view, you're going to add a data view control. You're going to bind that to a domino view data source. You're probably going to want to set the rows property for your data view control, just as you would for a view control, to render the number of rows that's appropriate for the mobile devices. And you'll add one summary column. Okay? You can only have one summary column, but what you won't do is you won't add any extra columns or an icon column or any details column or anything like that. What this screen is showing us is the functionality for showing more rows and how you would do that. Basically, you add a core link control into the appropriate pager bottom facet that's available in your data view control, and I'm going to show you how to do this. And then you would add this client-side simple action, add rows to data iterator, and specify which control it's for. That's for your data view control. And you might even want to disable the link once there are no more rows to add. Okay, so let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this mobile hello XPage, and I'm going to create a new XPage to render that customer view in the customer application. Now, let's take a quick look at the view that I'm going to be adding. So this is my customer's application, and if I take a look at this particular view, the customer by name view, okay, that's the one I want, and it's this particular column, my customer column, that I'm going to specify as my summary column for my data view control. Okay, and really, it's not the title. That's just what appears in your header or your column header. You've got to check that on the Advanced tab, the actual name for that column, which happens to be customer, and for the most part, will be the same as any header or column header that you add. But that's what's important. Okay, so I want to render that one column as my summary column. Okay. So back in my XPages, in my Workbench application, I'm going to create a new XPage. And I'll call this one mobile. Must use that mobile prefix. Mobile customers. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is add that single page application. I'm going to work in Designer for a moment. Okay, so I've added the single page application control. Let me switch over to my source. Okay, and that's all I have in my source right now. And then within that single page application, I'm going to add my mobile page. I need to give that a page name. And we're going to call that my view page. And then in my single page application, to avoid that error again, I need to specify which page to open first, and that is my view page. Okay, now I'm going to add a page heading. To my view page with the label customers, I don't know, by name. And in fact, I think I'll preview that right away. And that seems to be working. Let's see what that looks like in my simulator. So I'll just specify that page to open in my simulator. And that's what I'm seeing. Okay, customers by name. Okay, so the next task is to add a data view to this view page, mobile page. Add a data view, bind it to that customer by name view, and show the customer summary column. So let's do that. And let me just add a comment here. Okay, so your data view is in your extension library container. And here it is. So we're going to add that. And sort of like adding a view control, a core view control, you're prompted with this dialog saying, okay, well, which domino view do you want to bind to? So this is not in the current Workbench database that I'm working in. This is in another database, customers application, so I'll select that application. And the view that I want to render is the customer by name view. Okay, so I see on my view page, I have a heading, I have a data view control bound to this domino view data source. Okay. Now, one thing that I probably want to do is set the appropriate number of rows for mobile devices. So here in the all properties for the data view, I'm going to set that to 9. And as I do that, I can actually see that change up here in my source. And the other thing I need to do for my data view is to add a summary column. So let me collapse some of these properties in the all properties. The summary column you add in the format area. So there's a summary column. I can add a summary column. I can add extra columns. Nope, wouldn't want to do that for a mobile application. Take up too much space. So just need to add a single summary column. And I've done that. And now I need to specify which column do I want to show from my domino view data source, and that was the customer column. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to refresh my page in the simulator. And I've got some changes here. I'm seeing 9 rows of data from my customer by name view. Need to add that ability to add some more customers. You know, we've got more than 9 customers. So let's work on that part of the problem. Okay. So as we saw in the presentation, to do that, you add a standard link control. Now, we've seen this. This is a bit of a quirk, but basically all of these pager top left, pager top right, these should all have one of these green dots indicating that these particular facets, these defined areas in my data view, we can add content to. I can add a link to, for instance, but sometimes they seem to go away, particularly when you're working in the source view. So to fix that, simply close your XPage and reopen it, which I'm doing now. And there we go. There's our green dots indicating that these are editable areas. And I wanted to add that more customers link at the bottom. So to do that, that's a core link control that I'm just dragging into that editable area. Give it the appropriate label like, I don't know, more. And then the event for that link is a client-side event, and I'm going to add this particular event, the first choice here in the client-side simple action category, add rows to a data iterator. Okay, so number of controls. This, of course, isn't available as your standard core controls. This is available from the extension library and Upgrade Pack 1, along with some interesting fading effect controls like fade in and fade out and slide and wipe and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, that's the one I want, add data iterator, and I need to specify that this add row data iterator is for a particular control, and the control is that data view 1 control that I added to my XPage. This property here, disable ID, basically says to disable this more link when there are no more customers or no more rows of data to add. Okay, so let's try that out. I'll save that. I'll refresh my page in the simulator. And I'm seeing my More button here, and I can click on that. Of course, I'd be touching that on my actual device. And, you know, it always has this appearance of a button, you know, until we get to the end of our data, which should happen soon. And there it is. Now it's disabled. Okay, so that's that disabled ID property. Okay, so that's working great. But we want to work on the next part of this problem, and that is when the user touches, you know, one of these entries, you know, we're going to open up another mobile page that's going to show the content of that document. Okay, so let's first of all, get some ideas from the presentation. So what we're seeing on the screen right now is the broad steps for displaying a Domino document in a mobile application. First of all, you want to add a second mobile page, and to that you want to add a Domino document data source pointing to the appropriate form that basically has the schema, the fields that you want to display on that mobile page. Showing a little bit more detail on this screen. To add that data source, we're first going to add a panel because that is a control where we can attach a data source to. Then we're going to point our attach a Domino document data source. We want to provide some sort of navigation back to that view page. We're going to do that through the page heading, adding some sort of a back button. And also on your view mobile page, we need to specify which page to open when the user taps on one of those rows in the data view. Okay, so we need to specify the page name to go to. Okay, and probably also want to specify in this read-only application that we're developing to open the documents in read-only. So let's add that functionality. So I'm going to return to my mobile customers page, and looking at it in the source, right now I only have one application page, and really I should have been doing this all along, but that outline view also very handy reference in terms of what's on your XPage. So we see our XPage top level control and single page, and of course this will select that control and all of its contents, and here's our one mobile page that's been added. So we're going to add a second mobile page. First a comment, call this doc page, and once again from our mobile controls, adding a second mobile page, and in the properties specifying the page name of doc page. Now, one important property is that reset content property. Okay, and I'm going to set that to true. And the reason for this is that if you don't, the first row that the user selects, let's say they selected Atlantic Civic Golf Center, of course it would load that into our document or doc page mobile page. But when they return to this particular page and selected something else, they wouldn't see Dusty Road Golf Course. They'd see that original document. So that is the importance and the purpose of the reset content page. Always reset the content of this mobile page. Okay. I'm going to add a page heading, and let me rearrange this a little bit. Right now we're focusing on that document page. Okay, so I'm going to add a page heading. And the label for that heading is simply going to be customer info. And going to provide some back navigation. So as I showed you before, all customers, or we'll say home as the label for that back button. And where do we want to move to? We want to move to that view page. Okay. Okay, so the next step is for my document page to add a Domino document data source for the types of documents I want to display. To do that, what I need to do first is add a panel. Okay, so this is one of your core controls, your core panel, and the purpose of adding that is panels. On a panel or within a panel, you can define a data source. So you can add Domino View data source, Domino Document data source, Object data source. Hey, that's interesting. Another extension library option, any type of data source. Domino Document data source is what I want here. Once again, to an other application. So let me get to that customer application again. Okay, this is the one that I want, my customer's application. And the form that I want is the customer form. Okay. Okay, so I've got my data source defined, okay, within my panel. So the next step here, also within the panel, and this is only by convention, by styling convention. One of the mobile controls is your rounded list control, and when you're presenting data, document data by convention in a mobile application, it would be in a rectangular rounded list, so I'm going to take advantage of that convention. There are no properties that need to be set for this. I just need that to contain the fields and labels that I want to display. So just as you would do in a non-mobile XPage application, when you have a data source defined on your XPage, as I do, your data palette will show you the listing of all of the fields that are defined in that data source. So I'm going to select the ones that I want for this application, the customer name, the contact name, address, phone, and email. Okay, and I'll just drag them from my data palette within that rounded list control. And there they are. And if I switch over to design, I can see within my rounded rectangular list, I can see a table with some labels and the appropriate fields. And each one of these controls, these are edit box controls, they are bound to, this one is bound to the customer field in my document data source, document 1. This one is bound to the contact field, and so on. Now, one more change that I need to make, and that is back on my view page. So I'm going to go back to the source and scroll up to my view page. And here, I'm selecting the data view control on my view page, and I need to specify which page to open when an entry is clicked. Okay, this is the equivalent in your view control at runtime open selected document using. In fact, I could type it in here. That's my doc page. Okay, if I go to the all properties, that entry was added to my page name. Okay, so that's which mobile page to open when the user taps on one of those rows in the data view. And the other property that I'm going to set here is open docs as read-only. This is a read-only application that I'm developing, so open docs as read-only to true. Let me save that change, and I think I'm ready to try this out. So I'm going to refresh. And this is a little new. I'm seeing chevrons indicating some sort of functionality to the right when I click on one of these, when the user touches one of these on their device. And I'm seeing my doc page being loaded. Okay, I'm seeing my rounded list control and my table with my labels and editable control, or sorry, my edit box controls all listed, and of course showing the appropriate document. I added to that doc page a header with this label, Customer Info, and a back button called Home, and that returns me to my View page, mobile page. Okay, and if I open up a second document, Gallup's Department Store, I'm not seeing the previous rendering on that mobile page because reset content is true. Okay, and that's basically it. Now, this is a fully functional mobile application, and that's something you got to get your head around when you're developing mobile applications. But those read-only applications are quite useful if you can get your domino data, key domino data, in the hands of your users while they're mobile. That's a really great mobile application. Now, this could be improved with some minor changes. It would be nice when the user taps this phone number that their phone actually dials that person. If they were to tap this email, it actually sends the, starts an email to that email address. Okay, so that's some nice functionality. And if you have been hitting the tlcc.com/demo page with your mobile device, you'll see that some of that functionality has been built into that demo, along with this interesting control at the top to view the map. So it actually reads that address and renders it in a Google map. So that's a great application, a read-only mobile application. And Howard, I think I'm done.
Okay, Paul, thanks. Well, I think in about less than a half an hour, Paul took that Domino application and he converted over to mobile. So that's pretty good. Now, if you've been playing with the demo, you probably saw we had a couple additional capabilities. Again, here's the URL. So looking at that, if you didn't get a chance to look at that on your mobile device, let's see. We can take a quick look at that. And you see that we have basically the same application Paul's working on, or been working on. But we did add a couple enhancements. First of all, I can't show this to you on a desktop browser, but if you click on the phone, if you look at the very bottom of my browser window, you see that it has a URL of TEL : and then the phone number. So this is a URL link, and that URL with a TEL : in front of it, or in front of the phone number, will cause most mobile devices to dial that particular number. And of course, in a similar fashion, if you put SMS in front of a phone number in a link, it will also cause the mobile device to send a text message. And many of you in your web programming have put mail to in front of a mail address, and that will also allow you to create an email when you tap on that link. Now, we had a view map. We added a view map button, and this opens up yet another mobile page. And on this page, we have a map, and on the map, we've pinpointed that address, and we even put in, if you click on the pin, we even put the title of this particular customer. And this is Google Maps. You can switch to the satellite view and zoom in and zoom out, or use the little person here to get a street level view. So what we did, and let me drag over my designer to show you that. So for the links, so Paul had added a phone control, an edit box control. So what we want to do in this case is that in read mode, we want to hide, or I should say we want to only show the edit box where they can edit the phone in edit mode. And then we added a link control. And the link control is only visible when we're in read mode. So there's a not sign, the exclamation point, in front of this code, so it only shows when we're not in edit mode. And then we compute the label. Well, the label is the phone number, and so using the expression language, we say document1.phone to get the phone value from that document data source. And then the link type we compute. So we get the phone number using our backend Domino data source object, get item value phone, and then we return as our URL the TEL colon and the phone number. So using the link control, that's what we did. Same thing with the send message. Here we just return SMS in front of the phone number. And the mail to link, the send email, we also compute the link, but instead we get the email this time, and we put mail to in front of the value for the email for that particular customer. So those are pretty simple to add, and most phone devices, will use those, recognize those various mail to links, SMS, etc., TEL, and allow you to dial the phone or send a text message or send an email. Now for the other page, so I mentioned we added, you saw we added another page where we had our map. So this is another app page in this mobile application, and it's pretty simple in terms of the content. There's a lot of code here, but basically on this page, that's all we have besides the heading is a div. And so this is a standard HTML div that we gave it a name. And then we have a bunch of code that takes the address. I'm not going to go through this code line by line, but examples of this are on the Google Maps API website. And using some of their sample source code, they show you how you can take the address for a customer, and then we use a function to compute the latitude and longitude, and we use that to display the map. So this is all standard Google Maps JavaScript code. So again, we're in the mobile web browser. That JavaScript code is all still functional. So that's kind of some more advanced stuff that we did. The other thing, we didn't really put the demo that we put up on our website, allow you to edit it, because obviously that could create havoc when 200 of you are editing the same document and adding things. But you can, just to show you an example of being able to do edit mode, we do have, actually I think I have this in the browser. Where did I put the browser? Right here. So here's an example of edit mode, in that I can, just to show you it can be done, I can add an edit button to switch into edit mode and change some information and then save it. And then if I go back to that customer, I remember the customer I had. All right, I'll just change this one and remember this time. It said Harold will be Howard Jones for Atlantic City. So you see that change is made. Again, this is all Domino, and to kind of pre-answer a question I saw in the questions pane, this still requires the notes in Domino security. So you would, if you had set up the appropriate ACL levels, you would get prompted to log in at some point in time and authenticate, and you would only get the same access you would get in a typical notes application, whether it's a client application or a browser application. And then I can create a new customer using the plus button that's set up to create a new customer. So I'll do it over in the landscape mode here, and I can put in a new customer and put in all the information. And if I go to save it and I don't put in required values, I can do validation, just like a Domino application. So that is all the same. And again, on the different devices, you may get different ways to input this kind of information, depending on whether it's an iPhone or an Android. Again, we're in the simulator, so we're just seeing the standard desktop browser way to input in drop-down boxes and things like that. Okay, so what skills do you need to develop mobile web applications? Well, obviously you need to be a Domino developer, because this is, again, taking your Domino applications and converting it to XPages and mobile XPages. So the first couple we're showing this in terms of our TLCC courses, but you need to have an understanding of Notes and Domino development and an understanding of the Domino object model. You also need to know JavaScript. It's very helpful. We have a course for JavaScript for XPages development. And then we have the core XPages course that we offer, developing XPages using Domino Designer. And from there, you could take our mobile XPages course. You would have enough background skills to do that. And then you can go on to our XPages 2 course. And at some point in time, you might want to start learning Java. Since XPages are all based in Java, Java is very useful to know, but not a requirement to develop XPages. Just a reminder, we do have a instructor-led online class for the mobile XPages course, October 22nd. It'll be 5 half days, and we do have a special offer that we have. So at this point, we are up to our Q&A. Also, I'd like to point out that GBS, our partner in these webinars, have a number of products. I believe they resell the Team Studio Unplugged product, and as well as a number of other tools for both developers and administrators for Notes and Domino. So Paul, you have some questions queued up?
Yes. I have a question from Martha. We have 852. Would we only need to upgrade our servers to 853? No. You need a little bit more than that. So your Domino servers, you want to upgrade those to 853. By the way, similar questions from Mike as well, so let me get all of these. You would also need, in addition to upgrading to 853, you need the 853 Upgrade Pack 1 installed on your Domino servers. To develop your applications, you would also need 853 Upgrade Pack 1 installed on your Domino Designer 853 client as well. So that's the requirements for both developing and for deploying web applications with the web controls. A variation of that is, instead of using the upgrade pack, as Howard pointed out earlier in the presentation, you can use the extension library.
Okay, thanks, Paul. There's a question from Ovi. Excuse me if I mispronounce your name. Are there differences in how good the mobile pages are rendered on different platforms? And for the controls that Paul showed today, they all render about the same, but there are some HTML5 input controls that you can set that will work only on the iPhone and won't work yet on the Android. So I'm sure that will change over time. But yeah, there might be differences if you take advantage of some unique device features. But for the most part, if you're using the standard mobile controls, everything does work the same between the different platforms.
Okay, I have a question from Pooja. Where's the mobile simulator that Paul is using? Or maybe you want to show your designer and show some of the things in that simulator. But basically,
sure.
Yeah, that mobile simulator.
Take this.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so in the simulator, these are all from the extension library, and there's an X page called Mobile Sim, M-O-B-L Sim. And that is, if I open that up, you see that is the simulator there. And the only thing we changed in the extension library that is hard-coded to use a specific demo X page, but we just added a little bit of code to add the ability to get the a parameter off the URL string and use that as the X page to render. Then if you're doing that, there is also a number of image resources you need that you will see. They all kind of start with either AND or BlackBerry or IPH. And though, again, you're going to pull those out of the extension library demo database. And then I believe there's also a, not a style sheet, but a, let's see, if there was a script library, I think that might be it. So those are the pieces you would need to pull out of the XPage extension library demo. Let me just check. Yeah, so that would be all you would need.
Or you can pull them out of our activity databases when you purchase our course.
And then we've already made the change to pull in the appropriate URL. And we have instructions on how to do that. So a little plug. Okay, there was another question from Brian. Is it possible to have a view of categories that passes a variable to filter a subcategory view and then opens up the document? And how do you pass the original variable? So there's a number of different ways to do that, and we actually cover several different ways to do that in our course. Probably don't have time to cover that in the Q&A, but yeah, there are several different options on how you can, filter down. Obviously, the need for this is pretty strong in the mobile devices because you have such a limited screen real estate. So you definitely don't want to show a big old view with 10,000 different entries. You want to try to chunk that down as much as you can, and Brian is definitely on the right track in terms of somehow subcategorizing that view to help the users nail down to their the specific information they need.
Okay, I've got a question from William. Any special consideration for Windows 8 as the device OS? Well, one special consideration is not supported. So not a WebKit browser. Right now the mobile controls support the WebKit browsers, and that's your Android, your iOS devices, and BlackBerry by providing basically the same themes and styling for your iOS devices, for the BlackBerry devices. And those are BlackBerry devices version 6 or later. So Windows 8 currently not supported, your Windows 8 devices. Having said that, Howard and I were recently on a conference, and it's something that's being watched. So certainly IBM is watching that platform to see if there's a lot of demand there, and I imagine they would respond once there was.
Okay, so there, Paul, there's a couple questions on security from Tim and Vignette. It's, again, this is the Domino database. Whatever you do in Domino, the same security will happen. So if you want to set anonymous access, you can do that. Just like you do in Domino, you can set, your anonymous entry to reader or editor if you're that brave, whatever you want to do. Do you have any questions lined up, Paul?
I've got one from Allison. What is this summary column? Isn't it just the first column that's being displayed and showing the customer names? So when you define a data view, or when you use a data view, you can define one and only one summary column, and that particular column, it will be located left aligned on the left side of your data view. If you have category columns, they would be to the left of your summary column. If you have an icon column, also to the left of your summary column. So a summary column, you can only have one. It's aligned left in your data view. Any extra columns, additional columns that you define, those would be right aligned in your data view.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And we had a couple questions on file attachments. I don't believe the file upload control works in the mobile devices, but you can display a link to, let's say, a PDF file. Obviously, you got to be careful because mobile devices can't open all sorts of content, but things like a PDF, definitely work. And you could compute a link to so the user can click a link or a button to display, some sort of PDF file if you wanted to do that. Paul, if you're not ready with one, here's a quick one from Vignay. Again, the 853 Upgrade Pack 1, Vignay was asking about 853 Fix Pack 1. Two different things. Fix Pack 1 is a fixes on the 853 code stream, which just has fixes. 853 Upgrade Pack 1 has no fixes, but it gives you these extra controls for XPages developers. So that's all Upgrade Pack 1 is for XPages development and a set of extensions from the extension library that give you extra controls, extra capabilities for XPages developers.
Okay, question from Charles. Is there a way to dictate whether to reset content based on session scope variables? Gonna say no on this one. Your scope variables, I mean, they're certainly available to your XPage, and your mobile application is contained within your XPage. But basically, as you're moving from page to page, and that's typically, how you would use your scoped variables as you're moving, your session scope variables as the user moves from one XPage to another. That's not happening in a mobile application. Everything is contained within the mobile page. So in terms of passing values, at this point in time, you're more restricted to passing parameters through the URL. Howard, did you want to vary that comment? Or?
No, typically, we found that passing the parameters in the URL between pages works the best. I think we had issues when we were setting scope variables.
Yeah. Some of those variables weren't available as you move from page to page.
Well, they were, I think, available but weren't updated.
Yeah.
Because everything is set down to memory. So for performance reasons, even though there's multiple pages in the mobile application, there's the option to, send everything down to memory to the device, so that when you move between pages, you actually are not requesting more information from the server. It's just changing what you're viewing on the mobile browser, as opposed to getting a whole new web page from the browser.
Okay, comment from Matthew. My XPage on the Design tab just shows blue arrows around the tag names instead of the facets and the framework that I was showing when I, for instance, added the data view. Is this a newer version of the extension library, or is that the upgrade pack? Actually, Matthew, it kind of sounds like your XPage in that particular application isn't seeing the extension library or upgrade pack. That's what it sounds like to me, Howard.
Yeah, I think that it couldn't find that particular tag.
Yeah.
So it must have been created in a different level of, someone else's designer client that had either a higher level of the extension library or that control, or maybe even that property using that control isn't supported.
Right. Yeah, that'll cause that as well.
Okay. We had a question from Rudolph about setting a fixed number of rows. In the data view, you can define how many rows show up, and so we use the more customers to just add more customers to the end of what you were seeing, but you can use a previous and next type navigation as well, if that's what you want to do, and then restrict the number of lines in the data view to a certain number of rows.
I'm running out of questions, Howard.
Yeah, there are a couple other on security about user roles. And again, it's domino security. If user roles you can use. Secure HTTP, that works too, because all these mobile browsers support secure HTTP, via SSL. So that's not a problem. You can just set that database property to require secure HTTP if you want to enforce that all access to that particular database be through SSL.
Question from Jim. Must have missed something. How do you get the data view to display on a page? I was working this out in my own environment and only got up to the point where I can see the page title, tried the data view control, and could not get anything to display. That's pretty specific, Jim, in terms of your environment. One thing I would recommend is wait for the follow-up email to this webinar. You're going to get a recording of the webinar, and you'll be able to kind of play back just that portion where I was adding the data view and displaying it. Provided that you have the extension library installed, and you must, if the data view control is available to you, you should be able to set it up, point it to a Domino View data source, define that one summary column, to display in your mobile device, and that should work for you.
Okay, Paul, I don't see, I think we've covered everything. If there's no more questions, let's go ahead and wrap up.
Okay.
Just a reminder to everyone, again, we do have, if you want to learn more about mobile XPages, we got a really great class. It's going to be done in a go-to meeting format, but during the class, unlike this webinar, it'll be a very small group that the microphone will be open, and we encourage a lot of two-way conversation and discussion when we do our instructor-led online classes. And we will go into a lot more detail on the development of mobile XPages using the mobile controls. So thank you everyone for attending, and we will send out a post-webinar email with a link to the recording and to the presentation. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and take care.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Thanks, and everyone have a great day.
And that concludes this edition of Group Talk. Thanks for watching. To engage in conversations with us, visit twitter.com/gbsknows. To stay up to date, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/joingbs. And to watch entertaining and informative videos, visit youtube.com/gbsknows. And don't forget, visit our website and send us an email at gbs.com and info@gbs.com. Thanks again.